Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm JonJon, and I'm one of the hopeful disasters. I wanted to share with you all my story of a really tough time in my life that just happened last year. In June of 2022, I had just started my job as a programmer, and I was really excited, and everything was going really, really well. However, one day I started to feel sick, and it got so bad that I decided I wanted to go to the ER, which is not something I ever really want to do because I don't like getting IV put in and I just don't like being there in general. When I was at the ER, they thought I had an infection, and so they prescribed me some antibiotics to take over the weekend. And so I did, and even though they might have helped for a little bit, everything only got worse from there. I ended up going back to the ER after a few days, and my fever continued to increase and my body continued to worsen. I had trouble breathing, and eventually my organs started to fail, and I just was not in a good place at all. Then, after being in the hospital for a while, I was diagnosed with HLH, which is a disease that is more common in children and infants than adults, but is where blood cells are essentially attacking the body instead of attacking the things that they are supposed to. And that was a difficult thing to hear, but what was harder to hear was the fact that I would have to go through chemotherapy in order to treat it, which is not something I thought I would ever have to experience, but especially not at this stage in my life. From there, I stayed in the hospital for quite some time and was continually monitored until my body was more stable so that I could start doing the chemo treatments. And through the grace of God, my organs started to get better and heal. My body started to get a little bit stronger, and I was able to start the chemo treatments. Eventually, I was released from the hospital and continued to go through chemotherapy for a few more months. And now, a little over a year later, I can happily say that the HLH has been in remission and I am doing so much better than I was all that time ago. Through this whole experience, the biggest thing that I take away from it is just the hope that I had in Christ during all of it and afterwards. There was one point when I was in the hospital where I honestly didn't think I was going to live the next day. And while it was scary at first, I had this overwhelming peace that if I were to go that night, I knew that God was with me through it all and that I would be with him afterwards. And at the same time, if it were God's will for me to continue living on, that he would guide me and walk me through all the things that I had to. And he did. And I'm just so thankful that regardless of the circumstance that I was put in, God was going to see me through it. And he did see me through it. However, I know that not everybody has the same hope that I have because not everybody has put their trust in Christ. And these kinds of things can be really hard to walk through. One thing that was really heartbreaking to go through was I had to go see an HLH specialist, and because it is more common in children and infants, I had to go to a children's hospital. And when I saw all the kids walking through the same things I was walking through, it really broke my heart because not only were they going through it, but the families and the parents of these children were having to see their kids go through these things. And it just really hurt to see that that was something that they had to do. And so ultimately, my prayer is that they all experience the same hope that I have in Christ. Because without that hope, then life really does feel meaningless. One of the ways that we as a hopeful disasters community want to spread that hope of Christ is through giving of the things that God has provided us with. And so we ask that you pray and consider donating this season so that we can share that hope with others. Thank you all for listening to my story of the difficult time in my life, and I hope that you all have a very Merry Christmas.